The vast emptiness of space stretched before the Zornak reconnaissance vessel like an infinite canvas of darkness. Commander Vrax shifted uncomfortably in his bio-integrated command chair, his multi-jointed fingers trailing across holographic displays that pulsed with soft blue light. New Terra appeared as nothing more than a pale blue dot, almost insignificant against the backdrop of endless stars. Preliminary scans had been underwhelming. The human colony looked like countless others they had encountered and subsequently conquered, a small settlement clinging to the edges of explored space, with technology that seemed generations behind the Zornak Collective's advanced systems. Initial reports suggested primitive infrastructure, limited defensive capabilities, and a population barely able to sustain itself on the harsh planetary environment. Tactical assessment. Vrax commanded, his translator implant converting his native clicking language into standard galactic communication. Lieutenant Krasner stepped forward, mandibles clicking with a rhythm that suggested barely contained excitement. Surface analysis complete, Commander. Minimal orbital defense networks. No evidence of advanced shield technologies. Their communication arrays appear to be based on outdated radio wave transmission methods. The bridge of the reconnaissance vessel hummed with quiet anticipation. The Zornak had conquered hundreds of civilizations, their multi-species confederation renowned for its ruthless efficiency and technological superiority. New Terra would be just another footnote in their expansive galactic archives, a minor acquisition, a brief campaign that would barely register as a notable conflict. What they didn't know was that Colonel Emily Rodriguez was watching them with equal intensity. Deep beneath the surface of New Terra, in a command center carved into solid granite and reinforced with technologies far beyond what external scans could penetrate, Rodriguez studied her own set of displays. Her team of strategic specialists worked in near-silent coordination, each movement precise, each action calculated. "They're using standard long-range reconnaissance protocols," whispered Michael Thompson, her second in command. His fingers danced across a holographic interface that looked deceptively simple, a hallmark of human technological design that consistently defied external expectations. Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. The Zornak believed they were conducting a standard reconnaissance mission. They had no idea they were already being analyzed, categorized, and prepared for. The colony of New Terra was anything but a typical frontier settlement. Established 23 years earlier as part of humanity's most ambitious deep space colonization initiative, it represented something far more complex than a simple outpost. Every structure, every system, every piece of infrastructure had been designed with multiple contingencies in mind. The planet itself was a marvel of terraforming and adaptive engineering. What appeared to be simple agricultural zones were actually sophisticated defense networks. What looked like standard habitat modules were modular defensive positions that could reconfigure within minutes. The seemingly random topographical features were carefully designed to provide strategic advantages that would be invisible to any external observer. Vrax continued to review the incoming data, his confidence growing with each passing moment. The Zornak had perfected the art of planetary conquest. Their multispectral analysis systems could penetrate most planetary defenses. Their energy weapons could reduce entire cities to ash in moments. Their bioadaptive assault troops could neutralize most resistance within hours. "Prepare preliminary invasion protocols," Vrax instructed his tactical team. "We'll submit the standard ultimatum: surrender or face total elimination." Little did he know that every single communication was already being intercepted, analyzed, and used to build a comprehensive understanding of the incoming threat. Colonel Rodriguez turned to her team. "Initiate Phase 1, she said quietly. The response would not be what the Zornak expected. It would be something entirely different, a demonstration of human resilience, creativity, and an approach to warfare that would challenge everything the Zornak believed they understood about conflict. In the silent depths of space, the first moves of a game far more complex than simple invasion were already being made, and the board was set in humanity's favor. The first wave of Zornak assault ships descended like a metallic storm, their plasma torpedoes cutting through New Terra's atmosphere with surgical precision. Brilliant explosions erupted across the planetary surface, creating cascading fireballs that illuminated the early morning landscape. To any external observer, it would have appeared that the human colony was being systematically obliterated. Inside the primary command bunker, Michael Thompson watched the incoming assault with cold, calculated precision. His hands moved across a holographic display that seemed to dance with information, tracking each incoming projectile, each energy signature, each minute detail of the invasion. "Damage report," he called out, his voice steady despite the apocalyptic scene unfolding outside. Lieutenant Karen Williams responded immediately, her voice crisp and professional. "Surface-level infrastructure at 62% destruction. Primary agricultural zones compromised. Outer settlement perimeters completely neutralized." To the Zornak, this looked like total victory. They believed they were witnessing the complete collapse of human resistance. They were wrong. Commander Vrax aboard his flagship watched the planetary bombardment with a mixture of professional detachment and barely contained satisfaction. The Zornak assault strategy was perfection itself. Overwhelming force, precise targeting, complete annihilation. Each torpedo was guided by complex predictive algorithms, each energy burst calculated to maximum destructive potential. Confirmed total neutralization of primary settlement zones. Vrax commanded his tactical team. The bridge of the Zornak flagship hummed with technological precision. Holographic displays showed the progressive destruction, color-coded systems indicating the systematic elimination of human defensive capabilities. Red zones expanded, consuming the blue representation of the human colony. What they didn't see were the layers beneath the surface. Deep underground, a network of reinforced tunnels and modular defensive positions came to life. What appeared to be total destruction was actually a carefully orchestrated response. Each destroyed surface structure was a calculated sacrifice, designed to draw the Zornak into a false sense of security. Dr. James Anderson, head of technological adaptation, watched multiple holographic displays that showed the real-time metamorphosis of the human defensive strategy. Phase 2 initiating. He muttered to himself. The colony's population wasn't running. They weren't hiding. They were preparing. Scattered across the planetary surface, seemingly random geological formations began to shift. What looked like natural rock formations were actually sophisticated camouflaged defensive positions. Modular habitat units that seemed destroyed began to reconfigure, their molecular structures adapting and reshaping. Sarah Martinez, the colony's chief of psychological operations, was already implementing the next phase of their resistance. Every destroyed structure, every seemingly random explosion, was part of a larger narrative being constructed. Target communication frequencies, she instructed her team. Begin Phase 3 of psychological disruption. The Zornak believed they were conducting a standard planetary invasion. They had no concept of the multilayered response being mounted against them. Vrax continued to observe the planetary destruction, confident in the Zornak collective's superior technology. Their multispectral scanners should have detected any underground resistance. Their energy weapons should have penetrated any potential defensive structures. Should have, but human innovation operated on an entirely different paradigm. Each destroyed settlement was a carefully constructed trap. Each apparently eliminated defensive position was a potential ambush point. The humans weren't just defending. They were transforming the very concept of resistance into an art form. Prepare ground assault teams. Vrax instructed his tactical officers. We'll confirm total planetary subjugation. Little did he know that every single movement was already being anticipated, analyzed, and prepared for. The real war was just beginning. And the humans were playing an entirely different game. The landscape of New Terra had transformed into a living battlefield, where every rock, every shadow, every seemingly innocent geological formation could become a weapon. Lieutenant Karen Williams moved with her specialized unit, a group of warriors who had redefined the concept of asymmetrical warfare. Their first target was a Zornak forward reconnaissance drone that had landed in what appeared to be a barren valley. To an untrained eye, the area looked like nothing more than a desolate stretch of rocky terrain. But Williams knew better. "Prepare molecular disruptors," she whispered into her communication implant. The team moved with practiced precision. What looked like natural rock formations began to shift, revealing carefully camouflaged defensive positions. Adaptive nanomaterial uniforms allowed the human soldiers to blend perfectly with their surrounding environment, making them virtually undetectable to even the most advanced scanning technologies. Aboard the Zornak flagship, Commander Vrax grew increasingly frustrated. Their advanced sensor systems were being systematically compromised in ways that defied their understanding of technological warfare. "Tactical anomaly," reported Lieutenant Krasner, his multi-jointed fingers moving frantically across holographic displays. "We're losing tracking capabilities on multiple fronts." The Zornak had conquered hundreds of civilizations. They had developed technologies that could penetrate the most sophisticated defensive systems. They had weapons that could reduce entire planetary surfaces to molten slag. But the humans were writing an entirely new manual of warfare. Dr. James Anderson's technological adaptation team was working at a pace that defied conventional understanding. Every captured Zornak piece of technology became a learning opportunity, a potential weapon to be reimagined and repurposed. "Electromagnetic pulse configuration complete," Anderson muttered, watching as a device cobbled together from captured alien technology began to take shape. What looked like a random collection of components was actually a precisely engineered weapon designed to disable Zornak systems in ways they could never anticipate. The psychological warfare was equally sophisticated. Sarah Martinez understood something fundamental about conflict that the Zornak had never comprehended. Warfare wasn't just about destroying physical capabilities. It was about breaking spirit, about creating uncertainty, about making the enemy question everything they believed they knew. Communication channels became battlegrounds. The humans didn't just intercept Zornak transmissions, they manipulated them. False coordinates, fabricated tactical reports, carefully constructed audio signatures that mimicked Zornak command structures. Every transmission became a potential trap. Lieutenant Williams' unit struck with surgical precision. A Zornak ground assault team that believed they were advancing on a strategic position would suddenly find themselves surrounded, their own communication networks turned against them. Weapons would mysteriously malfunction. Tactical displays would show impossible scenarios. The very environment of New Terra became a weapon. Geological formations that seemed random were actually carefully designed defensive networks. What looked like simple rock formations could shift, reconfigure, become defensive positions or elaborate ambush points. The planet itself seemed to be fighting against the invaders. Commander Vrax watched in growing disbelief as his invasion force found itself fighting an enemy that didn't just adapt. They transformed the very concept of adaptation into an art form of warfare. "We're losing tactical cohesion," Krasner reported, his usual confidence replaced by a growing sense of panic. The humans weren't just defending. They were conducting a symphony of technological and psychological warfare, where every note was improvised, every instrument was unexpected. A Zornak assault team that believed they were advancing on a critical human position would suddenly find their own weapons turning against them. Communication networks would collapse. Tactical displays would show impossible scenarios. Colonel Emily Rodriguez watched from her underground command center, a holographic display showing the systematic dismantling of the alien invasion force. Not through brute force, but through an intricate dance of technological and strategic brilliance. "Maintain Phase 4, she instructed her team. "Keep them uncertain. Keep them off balance." The invisible war continued, and with each passing moment, the Zornak found themselves fighting an enemy they could neither understand nor predict. The real battle was just beginning. The converted research bunker hummed with an energy that defied conventional understanding of scientific exploration. Dr. James Anderson stood at the center of a whirlwind of technological innovation, surrounded by holographic displays and dismantled alien equipment that looked like a bizarre amalgamation of human and Zornak technologies. "Bring me the latest capture," he called out. Technical specialist Ryan Chen approached, carefully carrying the Zornak communication relay device that had been shot down during the previous night's skirmish. What looked like a simple piece of alien technology was about to become something entirely different. The device was carefully placed on a crystalline analysis platform. Microscopic probes extended from the platform, beginning a comprehensive deconstruction that went far beyond simple reverse engineering. This was technological transformation in its purest form. "Neural interface mapping complete," announced Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her fingers dancing across a holographic display that showed intricate networks of technological potential. "We're seeing communication pathways that the Zornak never anticipated could be exploited." What the Zornak didn't understand was that human technological innovation operated on an entirely different paradigm. Where the alien confederation saw rigid technological systems, humans saw potential, endless, malleable potential. A captured energy weapon was stripped down, its components carefully examined. Within hours, it would be reimagined into something the original designers could never have conceived. A communication relay became a sophisticated jamming device. A propulsion system was transformed into a power generation unit. Commander Vrax would have been horrified to see how quickly his advanced technology was being repurposed. In another section of the bunker, a team of engineers worked on what appeared to be a random collection of alien components. Michael Thompson observed their progress, a slight smile playing at the corner of his mouth. What looked like technological chaos was actually a precisely orchestrated symphony of innovation. "Electromagnetic pulse configuration at 78% completion," called out one of the engineers. The device they were creating would be capable of disrupting Zornak systems in ways that went far beyond traditional electronic warfare. It wasn't just about stopping technology. It was about understanding it, manipulating it, turning it into something entirely new. Sarah Martinez entered the laboratory, bringing with her a different kind of technological insight. "Psychological integration protocols are ready," she announced. This wasn't just about creating weapons. It was about creating technological systems that could fundamentally alter the enemy's perception of reality. Every captured piece of Zornak technology told a story, and the humans were becoming fluent in that language of technology. A communication relay was carefully dissected, its quantum entanglement circuits studied with a level of precision that would have been impossible just weeks earlier. Dr. Anderson noted how the Zornak had developed a communication system that seemed to defy traditional understanding of information transfer. "Look at this," he called to his team, highlighting a specific quantum circuit. "They're using multi-dimensional communication protocols that create redundant information pathways." What took the Zornak years of development, the human team was understanding and adapting in mere hours. Lieutenant Karen Williams entered the lab, bringing with her a partially damaged Zornak assault drone. "Another gift from the battlefield," she said, placing the device on an analysis platform. The drone was more than just a piece of equipment. It was a key to understanding the entire Zornak technological ecosystem. "Adaptive nanomaterial reconfiguration complete," announced one of the engineers. A captured energy shield generator was already being transformed. What was once a defensive technology was being reimagined as an offensive weapon system. Colonel Emily Rodriguez watched the entire process with a sense of quiet satisfaction. The humans weren't just defending themselves. They were rewriting the entire understanding of technological warfare. As night fell on New Terra, the research bunker continued to work. Alien technologies were being dismantled, understood, and transformed. Each captured device was a puzzle, each component a potential breakthrough. The Zornak believed they were conducting a standard invasion. They had no idea they were feeding the most innovative technological research team in the known galaxy. The real war was being fought in this bunker, one deconstructed circuit at a time. The psychological warfare room was a marvel of technological and human complexity. Sarah Martinez stood at its center, a holographic display wrapping around her like a living, breathing information ecosystem. Each screen represented a different layer of the mental battlefield they were about to engage. Communication pattern analysis complete, announced her lead specialist, Dr. David Chen. His fingers moved across interfaces that seemed to breathe with informational potential. The Zornak believed they understood psychological warfare. They had conquered hundreds of civilizations, breaking their spirit through calculated intimidation and overwhelming force. But humans operated on an entirely different wavelength. Their psychological tactics were an art form that defied conventional understanding. Commander Vrax began to notice the first subtle changes during a routine communication check. Transmission frequencies that should have been crisp and clear became muddled. Status reports from ground units contradicted each other in ways that defied logical explanation. "Repeat your last transmission," Vrax commanded his tactical officer. The response was a carefully crafted piece of psychological manipulation. Fragments of true information mixed with deliberately constructed misinformation, creating a narrative that would slowly erode the Zornak's confidence. Martinez understood something fundamental about psychological warfare that the Zornak could never comprehend. It wasn't about overwhelming the enemy. It was about making them question everything they believed they knew. Their first major intervention targeted the Zornak communication networks. What appeared to be standard tactical transmissions were actually precisely engineered psychological triggers. Each message was a carefully constructed puzzle, designed to create doubt, confusion, and internal conflict. Ground units began receiving conflicting orders. Communication protocols that had been rock-solid for generations suddenly became unreliable. Tactical displays showed impossible scenarios, units that appeared to be in multiple locations simultaneously, strategic points that seemed to shift and change with impossible frequency. "We're detecting anomalies in group cohesion," Dr. Chen reported, watching a complex graph that mapped the psychological state of Zornak military units. "Stress levels are increasing exponentially." The beauty of their approach was its subtlety. They weren't trying to break the Zornak's technological capabilities. They were systematically breaking their will to fight. Lieutenant Karen Williams provided critical intelligence from the ground. Each captured Zornak communication device became a conduit for psychological manipulation. Personal messages were subtly altered. Communication logs were modified in ways that created maximum psychological tension. Zornak units began to experience what could only be described as collective paranoia. Communication between different units became increasingly fraught with misunderstanding. Trust, the fundamental backbone of any military operation, began to erode. Psychological disruption at 62% effectiveness, Martins muttered, watching the holographic displays. Commander Vrax found himself questioning everything. Reports from ground units became increasingly bizarre. Strategic positions that should have been clear became murky. The certainty that had defined Zornak military operations for generations was systematically being dismantled. The humans weren't just fighting a physical war. They were conducting a symphony of psychological warfare that cut deeper than any weapon. In the communication center, specialized teams worked around the clock. Every intercepted transmission was an opportunity. Every captured communication device was a potential weapon. They weren't just gathering information, they were actively reshaping the psychological landscape of the invasion. "Prepare next phase, psychological intervention," Martinez instructed her team. The goal wasn't total destruction. It was total disorientation. Michael Thompson entered the room, bringing with him additional tactical insights. Cross-reference the latest communication anomalies with ground unit positioning, he suggested. The team worked with a precision that bordered on artistic. Each manipulation was carefully calculated, each psychological trigger precisely engineered. Zornak units began to experience something they had never encountered before, a complete breakdown of their understanding of conflict. Their advanced technologies, their generations of military superiority, meant nothing in the face of this new form of warfare. As night fell on New Terra, the psychological warfare continued. Quiet, precise, devastating. The real battle was happening in the minds of the invaders, and the humans were winning. The moment of true revelation came with a silence that was more devastating than any explosion. Colonel Emily Rodriguez stood in the primary command center, a holographic display surrounding her like a living, breathing strategic ecosystem. Each display represented a different layer of the ongoing conflict: communication networks, planetary defense systems, technological adaptations, psychological warfare metrics. Dr. James Anderson approached, carrying a device that looked like nothing more than a collection of seemingly random technological components. To the untrained eye, it would have appeared to be nothing more than scrap. But Rodriguez knew better. Quantum entanglement network is at full operational capacity, Anderson reported, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. The Zornak had believed their technological superiority was absolute. They had conquered hundreds of civilizations, their multispectral scanning systems able to penetrate the most sophisticated defensive technologies. Their communication networks were considered unbreakable, their military strategies unassailable. They were wrong. What the humans had been building was something entirely beyond the Zornak's comprehension. A network that didn't just communicate, it predicted. A system that didn't just defend, it transformed the very nature of conflict. Commander Vrax aboard his flagship watched in growing disbelief as his most advanced systems began to fail in ways that defied logical explanation. Strategic positions that should have been secure suddenly became vulnerable. Communication networks that had been rock solid for generations began to collapse. Tactical anomaly, his lead officer reported, mandibles clicking with growing panic. We're losing systemic integrity across multiple fronts. The quantum communication network developed by the humans was unlike anything the Zornak had ever encountered. It wasn't just a communication system. It was a predictive ecosystem that could anticipate potential conflict scenarios with impossible accuracy. Lieutenant Karen Williams led a ground unit that seemed to materialize out of thin air, strike with surgical precision, and vanish before the alien sensors could even register their presence. Each movement was part of a larger, intricate dance that the Zornak could not comprehend. Adaptive camouflage at maximum efficiency, she reported, her voice calm and steady. The human technological adaptations went far beyond simple military innovation. They had developed systems that could transform entire planetary ecosystems into defensive networks. Geological formations that appeared random were actually sophisticated defensive positions. Agricultural zones were actually complex sensor networks. Sarah Martinez's psychological warfare team had been working in perfect synchronization with the Technological Adaptation Group. Every captured piece of Zornak technology became not just a weapon, but a key to understanding their entire technological ecosystem. Michael Thompson oversaw a team that was rewriting the fundamental understanding of technological warfare. Captured communication relays were transformed into sophisticated jamming devices. Energy weapons were repurposed into power generation units. What took the Zornak years of development, the humans were understanding and adapting in mere hours. Bioengineered defensive systems are online. Dr. Elena Rodriguez reported, monitoring a series of displays that showed planetary defense mechanisms that could adapt in real time to alien technologies. The Zornak mothership, their most advanced technological marvel, found itself completely neutralized by a network of quantum-entangled communication devices that seemed to predict and counteract every move before it could be made. Commander Vrax watched in growing horror as his invasion force was systematically dismantled not through brute force, but through an intricate dance of technological and strategic brilliance that went beyond anything in their collective experience. "This is impossible," he muttered, watching as another of his advanced weapon systems was rendered completely inert. The humans had been preparing for this moment for generations. Every settlement, every piece of infrastructure, every technological system had been designed with multiple contingencies in mind. What appeared to be a simple colony was actually a sophisticated defensive ecosystem that could transform and adapt in ways the Zornak could never have anticipated. As the conflict reached its critical point, The true strength of human innovation became apparent. They weren't just defending themselves. They were demonstrating a fundamental approach to existence that the Zornak had never comprehended. Adaptation, innovation, resilience. The real battle was about to begin. The complete collapse of the Zornak invasion force happened not with a thunderous battle, but with a series of precisely calculated strategic dismantlings that left their military leadership in utter shock. Commander Vrax stared at his holographic displays, watching in disbelief as every strategic position became compromised. What had begun as a seemingly straightforward planetary conquest had transformed into a nightmare beyond comprehension. "Report," he demanded, his voice a mixture of rage and growing desperation. Lieutenant Krasner's response was almost inaudible. "We're losing tactical cohesion across all fronts. Communication networks are completely compromised. Our weapon systems are being systematically neutralized." The primary Zornak flagship hung in orbit, its once imposing silhouette now a testament to human technological innovation. Every advanced system the aliens possessed was being turned against them with a precision that defied logical explanation. Colonel Emily Rodriguez watched from her underground command center, a holographic display showing the systematic dismantling of the alien invasion force, not through brute force, but through an intricate dance of technological and strategic brilliance that went beyond traditional understanding of warfare. "Maintain Phase 7, she instructed her team. "Keep them off balance." The humans had transformed the entire planetary surface into a living, breathing defensive network. What appeared to be simple agricultural zones were actually sophisticated sensor arrays. Geological formations that seemed random were carefully designed ambush points. Every single aspect of New Terra had been prepared for this moment. Michael Thompson coordinated the final stages of their strategic response. "Quantum communication network at full synchronization," he reported, his fingers moving across holographic interfaces that seemed to breathe with informational potential. The Zornak found themselves fighting an enemy that didn't just adapt. They transformed the very concept of adaptation into an art form of warfare. Lieutenant Karen Williams led a special operations team that seemed to materialize and disappear at will. Their adaptive camouflage technology made them virtually undetectable, striking with surgical precision before vanishing into the planetary landscape. Dr. James Anderson's technological adaptation team was working at a pace that defied conventional understanding. Every captured Zornak piece of technology became a learning opportunity, a potential weapon to be reimagined and repurposed. "Electromagnetic pulse configuration complete," Anderson muttered, watching as a device cobbled together from captured alien technology began to take shape. Sarah Martinez's psychological warfare team delivered the final blow. Communication channels became battlegrounds where reality itself seemed to bend. False coordinates, fabricated tactical reports, carefully constructed audio signatures that mimicked Zornak command structures. Every transmission became a potential trap. The Zornak military leadership found themselves in a state of complete psychological breakdown. Their most advanced technologies, their generations of military superiority, meant nothing in the face of this new form of warfare. "We're detecting complete systemic failure," reported Dr. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring the psychological and technological collapse of the invasion force. Commander Vrax watched in growing horror as his entire invasion strategy crumbled. Weapon systems became inert. Communication networks dissolved. Strategic positions that should have been impenetrable became completely compromised. What the Zornak didn't understand was that humans had been preparing for this moment for generations. Every settlement, every piece of infrastructure, every technological system had been designed with multiple contingencies in mind. The planetary defense network was unlike anything the Zornak had ever encountered. It wasn't just a defensive system. It was a living, breathing ecosystem that could adapt, transform, and respond to threats in ways that defied traditional military understanding. "Prepare for complete strategic withdrawal," Vrax finally commanded, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. The humans had done more than just defend themselves. They had demonstrated a fundamental approach to existence that the Zornak had never comprehended: adaptation, innovation, resilience. As the Zornak flagship began its retreat, Colonel Rodriguez allowed herself a slight smile. The real victory wasn't in the destruction of the enemy. It was in the demonstration of humanity's true potential. The invasion was over. The lesson was just beginning. The diplomatic chamber was unlike any negotiation space the Zornak Collective had ever encountered. Located deep beneath the surface of New Terra, it seemed to breathe with a technological sophistication that defied their understanding. Commander Vrax entered with what remained of his senior leadership, each step weighted by the complete and total defeat they had experienced. The humans had not just defeated them. They had fundamentally challenged everything the Zornak believed about warfare, technology, and survival. Colonel Emily Rodriguez waited at the center of the chamber, flanked by Dr. James Anderson, Michael Thompson, and Sarah Martinez. Each represented a different aspect of the human response: technological innovation, strategic planning, psychological warfare. "You requested this meeting," Vrax began, his translator implant converting his native clicking language into standard galactic communication. Rodriguez's response was calm, measured. "We did." The irony was not lost on the Zornak delegation. They had come to conquer, to add another civilization to their vast interstellar confederation. Instead, they found themselves in a position they had never anticipated, being offered a path forward by the very civilization they had tried to destroy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stepped forward, carrying a holographic display that showed the intricate technological adaptations they had developed during the conflict. "What you experienced was not just a defense," she explained. "It was a demonstration of human potential." The display came to life, showing layer after layer of technological innovation. Captured Zornak equipment transformed into advanced defensive systems. Communication networks that could predict and adapt in real time. Planetary defense mechanisms that turned entire ecosystems into living, breathing defensive networks. Lieutenant Karen Williams presented the tactical analysis. Each movement, each strategic decision was revealed, not as a series of military maneuvers, but as a complex dance of technological and psychological innovation. "We didn't just defend," Michael Thompson explained. "We demonstrated an entirely different approach to existence." The Zornak delegation struggled to comprehend what they were seeing. Their entire understanding of technological warfare, of civilizational development, was being systematically dismantled. Sarah Martinez revealed the psychological warfare techniques they had employed. It wasn't about destruction. It was about communication, about finding ways to break down barriers of understanding. "Your invasion was based on a fundamental misunderstanding," she explained. "You saw us as a target. We saw an opportunity for mutual understanding." Dr. James Anderson demonstrated how every piece of captured Zornak technology had been not just studied, but transformed. Weapons became communication devices. Communication relays became sophisticated defensive systems. Each piece of technology told a story of innovation and potential. Commander Vrax found himself experiencing something unprecedented: a complete breakdown of the Zornak's collective understanding of conflict and civilization. "We're offering you a choice," Colonel Rodriguez said, her voice cutting through the technological displays. "Not subjugation, not revenge, but a path forward." The diplomatic proposal was unlike anything in the Zornak's historical records. It wasn't about conquering or being conquered. It was about mutual development, about sharing knowledge, about understanding. Michael Thompson presented a comprehensive framework for technological and cultural exchange. The humans weren't seeking retribution. They were seeking understanding. "Your technologies have value," he explained, "but so do ours. What we're proposing is a fundamental reimagining of interstellar cooperation." The Zornak delegation looked at each other, their complex communication systems struggling to process what they were experiencing. Sarah Martinez introduced a series of psychological and cultural exchange programs, not as a form of pacification, but as a genuine attempt to bridge the gap between their civilizations. "We're not interested in your submission," she said. "We're interested in your potential." Dr. Elena Rodriguez showed how human adaptive technologies could help solve some of the Zornak Collective's most challenging technological limitations. It wasn't about superiority, it was about collaboration. As the negotiations continued, something fundamental began to shift. The Zornak were experiencing a complete revaluation of their understanding of conflict, of civilization, of potential. Commander Vrax realized they were being offered something far more valuable than conquest. They were being offered a chance to grow, to learn, to understand. The surrender was more than a military capitulation. It was the beginning of something entirely new.